Hello friends, this is tutorial 101 in this Java programming language tutorials. In one of the previous tutorials we had application where we calculated area of triangle, square, rectangle and of circle. In this application we will do one similar application, but we will not calculate the area. We will have a sphere and we will calculate the volume and the surface of the sphere. We will have a couple of spheres, and each sphere, it will have its own radius. We will enter and we will create couple of spheres and we will put them in the vector. We will practice vectors a little, and we will have we want to know all the volume and the surface of all spheres, and we want to find which is the sphere with minimum volume and the minimum surface. And let's start with our application. Okay, we will use this test project, and we will just create one package. The name of the package will be sphere calculation, sphere calc. It will be okay. It will be the name of the package. You can put the name of the package whatever you want. And now we will create one class. The name of the class will be sphere. It will be an object, and this object will have three fields. Private, it will be private double, radius, and it will have private double. All these fields will be double, volume, and private double surface. Okay, and we will create a constructor. We will generate constructor using fields. We'll give a little space, and we will generate getters and setters. We will select all of these fields, and this will be all. We will not need toString. Okay, and just let's save this class. And now in the same package we will create class application. We will run our application from here, and we will have a main method. And now what we will do, we will create a vector of spheres, private, and it will be static. The same thing as we did with list, we will do the same thing with vector. It will be vector of an object, a sphere, and we need to give the name of this. We will call it boxes, equals to new vector of sphere. Okay, and our vector is created. We need to import a vector from the Java library. Because of this we have this error, but we will use scanner we'll have a couple of methods, and to prevent if it is better to create a private static scanner. It will be input equals to new scanner system.in. Now I use scanner here because it is better. We can use this scanner in the main input, in the main method. Also we can use it in the other methods that we will create. And now we'll press Ctrl Shift and O to import scanner and vector from the Java library. And now after we create this scanner, we need to create one method. This will be the method to create these spheres for us. Let's create, it will be a void, public static void. It will be create sphere. And now let's define this method. First we will create three double variables. We will create variables radius, volume, and surface. Let's create it. It's just local variables. At this moment it doesn't have anything to do with our object of sphere. Double radius, volume, and the surface. And we will create one local integer. X will be equals to 0. And now we will need, of course, we could do it with for loop, but now I want to use a while loop. Let's use while loop a little. But before this while loop, we will need to write a message. We want to know how many spheres we will have. How many spheres. And we will create one integer. It will be entry equals input dot next integer. And now we will use this while loop while x is lesser than entry. And now we will need a message, but first we want to know. We will write. It will be a number. First, we need to enter the sphere radius, but it will be. We will do like this: x plus 1. And we will use slash, and we will use entry. And we will write enter sphere radius. And a radius will be equals. We have one. Just a second. I forgot plus here. And a radius will be equals input dot next double. And now what we need to do, we need to calculate, to define these two variables, volume and surface. For that we will use a formula, just a second. Volume will be equals, we need to use a formula to calculate the volume of the sphere. It will be 4, we'll use classic math formula for that, 4 divided with 3, multiplied, we need a p number, we will use math library, math.p, we need a cube number of radius. We can, of course, we can type multiplied with radius, multiplied with radius, multiplied with radius, but it is better, we will use math.pow. We will use a radius. We need a cube number of the radius, and number 3. And this is the formula to calculate the volume. And now we need to define surface, will be equals, we need to math formula to calculate the surface of the sphere. It will be 4 multiplied with p, math.p, and multiplied 2 times with radius, so we can use math.pow, and we will use radius, and we will use 2 times. This is the formula to calculate the surface of the sphere. And now we need to create sphere. We have a sphere. We have this is a private fields, radius, volume, and surface. At this moment, it has nothing to do with these variables, but let's connect it. Let's create a sphere, and we will call it just S equals to new sphere. And here it is, radius, volume, and surface. This is the field. This is our constructor, and we will use these variables to create a sphere. It will have own radius, volume, and the surface. And it depends how many spheres we have. Depending of the entry, it will depend how many spheres we will have. And we created this sphere, and what should we do now? We will just add this sphere to the vector of boxes. Let's do it. Boxes. We will add this sphere that we created. And of course it depends how many spheres we will have. All of these spheres that we create will be added to the vector of the boxes. And now we will just need, we can't forget to increment a local variable x. And this should be good. Now we finish with while loop. And what should we do now? We will just print. We want to print all of the spheres that we created. And how we gonna do that? Again, we need to redefine, and we'll use again a while loop. But again, we need to redefine x to 0. And let's create a while loop. As I already told you, this if entry is 5, we will need to create 5 spheres, and all of these spheres will be added to our vector of boxes. Now in this while loop, while x is lesser, we can use of course entry, but we already put all of these spheres in the vector of boxes. We will just use a lesser than boxes dot size. And we need to print system out print line. We'll use print, it will be better. We'll write sphere, and number of sphere will be, but it is better, our x is 0, and we don't want sphere 0. It is better to start with sphere 1. We will add x plus 1. And we will write 2 dots. And we want to write, we will not write the radius, we just want to write volume and the surface. Let's start with volume, but we will need a little space. Volume plus, and let's write, we have a vector of boxes, get element x. It will start from 0, and we'll just get volume. We need a get volume, and the same thing, but it will also be print. It will not be print line. And here we will have print line. We will write surface plus boxes dot get element x and get surface, and it should be good. It should be good, but we need also here, we can forget to increment x. If we forget to increment x, we will have endless loop, and we don't want it. And I think it should be good. Okay, I just think, we will see. And here in the main method, we will just call this method create sphere, and I think it should be fine. Okay, we just have at this moment we just have one line of code, but this application we will do we will resolve entire application we will do in the other methods, and in the main method we will just call the methods that we created. Now just a second. Okay, let's save it and let's run. We will see what we will get. How many spheres? Okay, we will have 4 spheres. Okay, as you can see, first of 4, enter sphere radius, it will be 2. Second of 4, enter sphere radius. Okay, let's go up this a little. 5.5, 3.25, and 1. Okay, as you can see, we have This is good. We created 4 spheres. Sphere number 1, sphere number 2, sphere number 3, and sphere number 4. As you can see, all of these spheres has its own volume and its own surface. And this is pretty much good. But also, as you can see, we have a lot of decimals here. I don't know, more than 10. And I think that we don't need this number of decimals. We can, for example, we want to write just 5 decimals should be enough. And also I want to in one of the previous tutorials, body fat calculator application, many of you told me that formatting decimals with print F that I showed you in that tutorial, with some people I talk, and this print F doesn't work in their Eclipse, and it is possible. And because of that, I want to show you another way how we can format the decimals, and let's do it. We will use decimal format, and I think it is better. It will need us in another methods, and I will create it as a static. It will be private static, and it will be decimal format. And now I will show you how to use decimal format. We will call it df as a decimal initials of decimal format equals to new decimal format. And inside these brackets we need a text, and the text but it will be inside text. We will type dot and 5 zeros. And what these 5 zeros mean? It means I need a semicolon. Decimal for how many decimals we will use, and we have 5. If we want for example 2 decimals, we will type 2 zeros. Now we want 5 decimals, and we type 5 zeros. And how can we implement this decimal format that we created? Okay, just a second. Here we have a volume. Let me just delete this. Okay, and here let's implement the df dot format, and which number? It will be the same boxes of get element, just a second, get element x and get volume. Pretty much simple, nothing, and it will print us this volume with 5 decimals. And we can also implement it with surface df dot format boxes dot get x, and I need one more closing bracket, and it should be good. Let me use Ctrl Shift and F. Let me save, and we will see how it will work now. Okay, how many spheres? We will use 4 spheres again. Okay, enter sphere radius 6, 2, 3.7, 8.86. Okay, and now as you can see, okay, this is good, this is perfect. We have all of these 4 spheres. Each sphere has its own volume and its own surface. But as you can see, now we have it with 5 decimals, which is perfect. And this is another alternative way to use decimal format. Okay, and in the next tutorials, because many of you told me that printf doesn't work, I will use decimal format like this, and this is perfect. And now what we want to do, we just want to find the sphere with a minimum volume, and the sphere with minimum surface. And how we gonna do that? We will create one more method. Okay, here this method finish here. This is create sphere. It ends here, and let's give a couple of space. And let's create another void method. It will be public static void, and the name of the method will be, we want to find the sphere with minimum volume. Yes, it will be a void method. And how we gonna do it? We will need a couple of variables. We will need a minimum. Let's create. It will be a double because volume is a double. Double minimum equals to, it will be equals to 0, and we will need integer. We will need integer x, which will be equals to 0 because we will use while loop, and also we will create one more integer, and it will be index. This index will need us because we want to know, for example, if sphere, in this case it is should be sphere number 2 with minimum volume, and this index needs to find which sphere has minimum volume. And yes, minimum volume, just a minimum volume. This is a method to find minimum volume. And let's create while loop again. While x is lesser than boxes dot size. And now let's define minimum. Let's create control statement. If minimum, it is pretty much it's the same way as we did with a list. If minimum equals to 0, or minimum is greater than boxes dot get element x dot get a volume. And let's redefine minimum. Minimum will be equals boxes dot get element x and dot get volume. Okay, and now we defined our minimum, which is perfect. And now what should we do? We will create. We found minimum, but still we don't know which is the index of the minimum sphere. And let's define it, but we need to redefine again. X will be 0, and let's create one more while loop. While x is lesser than boxes dot size. And now we need to check if we already defined minimum. Minimum equals to boxes dot get x and get volume. We define if minimum equals to the volume, and if this condition is true, index will be equals to x, but it will not be equals to x because x starts from 0 and our sphere starts from 1, 2, 3. It will be x plus 1. And now we define the index, and when this while loop is finished, we need to write a message system out print line, and I will need a little space slash n to the new line, and I will write minimum volume, and let's write the sphere with minimum volume. It will be sphere, and we need a number of sphere, and for that we will need index. And I will use two dot, and it is better. I will use a print, and in the now I will use system out print line, and a little space, a volume. And now volume will be minimum, because we already found minimum, which will be equal to minimum volume. And I think that should be worked fine. And just one more thing here in this while loop, we had a while loop here, and we forgot to increment x, and also we will increment x in this another while loop. We can't forget that, because it will not work. We will have endless loop. We can't let that happen. And now what can we do? We will just but here we will have a minimum. We will use it as a, just a second, we will use it with 5 decimals. We will use df dot format and minimum. It will be better. Now let's call this method minimum volume, and I want now, I will not, before I start try to see how it will gonna work, I want to copy this entire method, and I want another method. I want a method to find the minimum surface, and let's change the name of the method. It will be minimum surface, and we will just change couple of things here. Okay, this we will have all of these three local variables, and here instead of get volume will be get surface, and also here instead of get volume we will have get surface. just a second. And here also, instead of get volume, we will have get surface. We need to check it well too, and here also we need to change the text minimum surface, and here it will be surface. And I think that should be fine. And also I need to call this method here minimum, which will be minimum surface. And that should be fine. Just a second. Let me see. Well, this called well. Okay. This looks good for the moment. At the moment. And now let me just see how if it will work properly. We didn't save. Okay, now how many spheres we will have? Okay, we can have 5 spheres. Enter sphere radius 3.9, 1.4, 6, 7, 10.25, and let me see. Okay, we have these 5 spheres. Each has its own volume and its own surface, as you can see, and we have a sphere with minimum volume and minimum surface. Sphere, it is number 2, which is correct. This means that this works perfectly. And now what can we do? We can just run it again. Let's type. We have 8 spheres. 8 spheres, as you can see. First from 8. Let's type 6.765, 3.5, 2.9, 11. 4.67, 1.12, 1.9, 5.54. As you can see, now we have these 8 spheres, and minimum volume is the sphere number 6, 4.41. Okay, this is good. And minimum surface is also sphere number 6. It is 15.76, and this is good. And this means that this works perfectly. We can just type again with okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this means this work. As you can see, sphere number 1 has a minimum volume and minimum surface, which is perfect. This works perfectly. Let me see entire code. As you can see, not so easy, but it is not so complicated. We created just our object or sphere with these 3 fields: radius, volume, and the surface. Generated getters and setters. And this application first, in this first method, create sphere. We created 3 variables, and we defined how many spheres we will have, and we entered the radius. And when we entered the radius, we calculated the volume and the surface. These were our variables. We calculated volume and surface using math formula. And when we calculated, when we have all of these 3 variables, we use them in when we created object of sphere S, we used these three variables to put them in the constructor, and we added this sphere in a vector that we created, of course, and we of course write all of these spheres that we created from the vector, and we use df decimal format. We learned another way how to format decimals in Java, and we created all of these spheres, put them in the vector, and print them. And now in this we created two methods to find the sphere with minimum volume. Of course, we use minimum variable. We use local variable x because of while loop, and we have a variable index that we use that index to find which is the index of the sphere with a minimum volume, and this is for this method, and we write the message. And we use also the similar method how to find sphere with minimum surface. We just change a little of text and a little of instead of get volume, we use get surface, and we found the sphere with minimum surface, and this application works perfectly fine. I really hope that you like this video. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram. You have a link in the description. And I will see you in the next tutorial.